I'm a lifelong abductee, on top of everything else. Yep.
It's surprising you have, experiences with Bigfoot too.
I have many. That's what kills me. Very close ones too. None of this like, oh, I saw it way out there and it ran. Yeah. No, mine are very intimate and close. And that's why I wanted to bring you to the area where most of them have happened. In 1969, Skamania County did an ordinance that if you harm or shoot at a Sasquatch, you will be fined $1,000 or go to jail for a year.
Yeah.
It is a fact, and you're in Skamania County. So, welcome to Bigfoot country. I have a lot of PTSD, guys. Everything from Sasquatch to paranormal events. I've actually had telepathy as well with aliens and Sasquatch. A lot of people who are obsessed with UFOs are actually abductees and they don't even know it. That's why I have a tendency to ask them questions, and then a lot of times I'm like, yeah, potentially you have been abducted. So yeah. There's some estimates out there that about 10% of the US population's been abducted at some point by extraterrestrials. I'll tell you about a quantum entanglement with a Sasquatch that I had, where literally it came to me in the middle of the night. So, be happy to tell you that story too, if you like. I believe we're hybrids. I believe there was a life form similar to a Sasquatch that they genetically manipulated the DNA. Several alien races did, not just one, a long time ago. And so it was an experimentation. And they had basically islands of different types of humans that they genetically created. And matter of fact, they eliminated some of their experiments that didn't go where they wanted it to go. But the Anunnaki, when they came, they were looking for gold, is how it goes, right? With Babylon and Mesopotamia and all that, according to their records. And what they did is they hated the fact we talk, because most of the universe is telepathic in the communication, and I have done telepathy. It is very real, my friends. And they disliked that intensely. So what they did is, when they left the planet, they altered the humans in such a way that we have an on and off switch, and our telepathy and our connection to the universe, Jill, is dumbed down completely. So that on and off switch is why people black out. The minute you go on a spaceship, they turn you off, and this is the way they do it. It has to do with our eyes. So a tall gray will go straight up right to your forehead with his huge eyes, and you black out. However, because I woke up in one of the trances, I could see that everybody else was hypnotized with their eyes open. But they were hypnotized. They weren't doing anything but whatever they were led to do. We have done gravitational waves with microwaves, which slams their gravitational bubble, which they create, by the way. Remember I told you when you walk into a spaceship, it's like you're walking into like a huge stadium, but it's only this big?
Yeah.
It's tiny?
Yeah.
Because they create their own gravity. There are different types of Sasquatch. You have the ones that have been here for a long time, longer than humanity, according to them, that are indigenous to this planet, and they're multidimensional, is what I believe. Yeah. They have the ability to teleport into a parallel universe. And I know for a fact they exist, because one time me and my other half literally entered a multiverse. And I don't know if we ever came back to ours. That's the whole thing. And I had fact after fact after fact, because it was a place that we frequented all the time. We knew the owners and everything. It was a restaurant. It's called Beaches. It's down in Vancouver, or was, until they closed it. I went there for years. I knew all the staff. I knew the owners. And one day there was this glimmering, like if you're looking at an oasis in the desert, like on a road, and all of a sudden a frequency happened, okay? I'm getting chills just talking about it. Next thing I know, we're in the multiverse, and the staff is all different. The bartender is always there. He's an older guy. There was a young guy. That bartender never left. And I asked the manager, who I never knew, because I've never seen her before, I asked her specifically all these things, how long she's been there. She said she'd been there 8 years, but yet I've never seen her. And they have another location in this multiverse, I believe, that they had at the airport, which I've gone to. So I think I did come back to our multiverse. But here's the thing, guys. Sometimes you never come back. And sometimes people from other multiverses drop into ours and can't go back. There's one guy who claims that COVID in his multiverse never existed. Yeah, imagine that. So going back to Bigfoot and Sasquatch, absolutely. I'm a firm believer that they have interdimensional quantum abilities to teleport, and if that is not enough, they have cloaking technology that is triggered by fear or self-preservation, is what I believe. Because the Sasquatch that I had within feet of me disappear, it's literally because I looked the other way, looked back. I didn't see a light, I didn't see a flash, I didn't see shimmering. So in my belief, I didn't hear anything, not even movement. So in my belief, he just cloaked and he was still there. And this is the area where this happened, just up about a mile up the trail. So here's one that's gonna twist your noodle. Praying mantises actually have high-level vibrational emotions. He was sending love at me, bombarding me at 8:15 in the morning on a bright day. I could see a spaceship. It opened a panel, and he looked straight down at me. And he said, "Don't be afraid." And he was bombarding me with love. The Greys don't have that. The Greys are completely robotic. They're organic, robotic life forms that are created, the little ones, for service. I don't think they have a soul. I think the universe created a finite level of souls that got fragmented and continue to fragment into existence, creating multiverses, multi-universes. And this is what kills me, and this is why I think telepathy and everything is real. Everything is one mind. Everything consists of one consciousness that comprises of energy, frequency, and vibration, according to Tesla. And here's another thing for you. I think I mentioned this to you when we talked. The spaceships are alive. But now that I think about it, they're a hybridization of organics and AI. I don't think they're quite alive, just like the little guys, but they can communicate, because I remember multi-lives, and in one of my lives, I was a Mayan, I was in a temple, and I recognized a UFO. It's the same one that abducted me in this lifetime, in one of my abductions. There's no such thing as time and space, guys. There's only one mind, and you could travel to other times and spaces. Like, we're simultaneously living all our past and future lives. I even know my future life. I'm gonna be Russian. I already know this, and I'm going to be in Siberia, and Siberia is gonna be different. It's not gonna be cold like it is right now. So that's why I don't believe in time at all. I think it's basically a mass consciousness where we all kind of created these rules for this universe that we're in so that we can operate and have experiences. And I think The one consciousness is literally after experience. Because Akashic records are very real. I've accessed them many times, and that's because it's one mind. But here's the danger. If you do remote viewing, you have to be very careful. And I call it, you can watch like a show, don't touch. One time I tried to touch a gray spaceship. They tried to entrap my soul in this black box. And I'm not the only one who's had that experience. I've actually come across someone else who had. Yeah, they have a way of entrapping your spirit if you're not careful. But we're talking about aliens here. I'm sure you want to talk about Bigfoot. Even the ones that people perceive as evil, they're still part of us. I don't know if that's very comforting, but we are all one, united in the end. But the one thing I cannot help you with is alien Bigfoots. They are real. There are Sasquatches. You'll find them in PA mostly, in Pennsylvania. A lot of sightings of UFOs bringing down Sasquatches or Sasquatches seen on UFOs. That is not my experience. And I'm very blunt. I'll tell you yes or no, I've had it. And I do not ever recall anything to that extent on a ship. So, in the Pacific Northwest, you will find outdoor schools. And one particular outdoor school that I had attended to when I was young, when we were in the so-called dormitories, for a better word, we were all together in bunk beds. At about 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard these gigantic footsteps. And I was a kid, I was very young, because outdoor school, right? And I'm like, wow, it must have been an overweight kid outside stomping in the middle of the night. What is up with this? And it bothered me because it came up to the porch and it wouldn't stop stomping. And then all of a sudden, the minute it was on the porch, everything went quiet for like 10, 15 minutes. And then I can hear it stomping away. Well, it bothered me so much that I woke up at the crack of dawn. I went outside. It was a beautiful day. It was sunny. And I could see, we were on a ravine. I could see down at the river a Sasquatch drinking water with its hands. And I could see my teacher, actually, that I had in one of my classes, approaching the Sasquatch without even knowing it was there. And I started screaming at the top of the ravine, "Be careful, watch out." And the Sasquatch heard me, but she didn't, because the river was loud. And it let out a huge roar, a guttural roar that was so sonic, it literally hit me. And then it turned its entire torso, because for some reason their neck doesn't work like ours, and looked up, looked back at me, and looked at them, and ran straight up a hillside, an incredibly steep ravine. And he did it so fast, he was gone within seconds. No athlete can do that. The speed, the velocity, the incline, no human could do that. And it was gone. Honestly, a lot of things happened in my teenage years. I think in our teenage years, because our hormones are flowing, a lot of possibilities are there for us with telepathy. I believe that I vibrate at a slightly different frequency than most people, because I have the ability to see these things and these experiences to have. And most people, like finding Bigfoot, Cliff Brockman, I talked to him personally, he's never seen a Sasquatch. Yet he'll go into these woods for weeks on end by himself, and still he'll hear them, but he will not ever see one. And I'll come out here and I just kind of run into them quite frequently. So that's why I believe it has to do with frequency, adaptivity, and we're intertwined, quantum wise where I can see these things. So up the path here, you'll start seeing Sasquatch sign with the wood. And then right around the bend is where I saw the portal, and I'll show it to you. It's still there, the area. A mother and a child came out of the portal, and it was pitch black. Now, I found that interesting because it was broad daylight, and yet the portal was pitch black. And the only reason I knew is because they were talking amongst themselves. That was a female and a child. And I know this is inappropriate, and I'm just repeating what they said, but the mother telepathically said to me, "Do not mind the retarded children in the woods." Now, that hasn't been used as terminology in an incredibly long time by anyone. And I don't use that terminology. But what's worse is she did it telepathically. She put me in a trance. I didn't break the trance till the following day. I literally went, "Oh, okay," and kept going up my hike. And then the next morning, it burst. And I realized, oh my gosh, she hypnotized me and she used telepathy to do it. And I had another telepathic encounter with a Sasquatch recently, which I call Goldilocks up here. Goldilocks, I knew I was going to meet him. Like I said, I have glimpses of future events, and I knew I was going to meet him. And one day, he had the audacity to put his footprint right on our trail. It's huge. You cannot mistake it for anything. And it was when it was wet, and the trail can see the imprint. He was claiming that was his territory to the humans. And he showed himself to me in that exact same area one day when I was alone. And he's unusual. He's a different type of Sasquatch. I called him Goldilocks because you could not see his face, and his hair was all golden brown, absolutely gorgeous. He did something to me with ultrasound because I went into a trance. See, I have a lot of PTSD on board, and I went into a trance where I was extremely calm, like almost sedated, and there was no telepathic communication between us. He was within feet of me, and then I turned, looked back, and he had disappeared, but I felt his presence was still there. So he cloaked. And he was a tall male, about 8.5, 9 feet tall, and he was within feet of me. He could have easily grabbed me. This is the portal that opened up that was pitch black, and I heard the sounds of a female Sasquatch and a child talking in their language. And this is where I had the communication where I got under a trance and hypnotized, and continued with my hike thinking like nothing went wrong. I don't know what happened to the portal. I haven't seen it since, but it was definitely right here. Pitch blackness, like a round area that was large enough for something that was 9 feet tall to come through, and wide enough for at least a couple of them. So I think it was customized to the child and the mom. On a side note, I also believe in higher souls that make basically agreements in between lives with you, and you consult with other souls. And I think that you make agreements to find each other in life, and I think that sometimes we vibrate on similar levels. Different people vibrate on different levels, and they basically meet their soul counterparts that they were meant to have experiences with. One of my experiences, I've had many right here, actually, everything stemming from females, children, to single male Sasquatches, to the paranormal, where they've actually went interdimensional and disappeared, and sometimes they just cloak. I've had all those experiences right here, and that's why I wanted to film here, because it's so relevant to the subject matter. As in one of my experiences that I had, it wasn't here, it was on Mount Hood. The Salvation Army, which we were part of when I was a child, actually every summer likes to rent a campground for everybody as a retreat for a week. I think it's an incredible thing they do, and I applaud them for it. So my family would go every single year and spend a week out in the beautiful wilderness and enjoy nature at its best. There was one incident that happened near a lake up in Mount Hood, and it was towards dusk. There was a family with like 6 children that were very young, and they were all playing at the edge of the forest, which the campsite was nestled right next to a lake and the edge of a dry swamp, and this is where the incident happened. They were playing, and then one of the children had disappeared. And the mom's like, well, where is he? And everybody looked around and they said, well, he was right here just a minute ago at the edge of this forest, and nobody could find him. The mother started panicking. The family was chaotic. It was looking everywhere, calling out his name. I have the ability to run, especially when I was young. I'm a long distance runner. I started running through the swamp, the dry swamp. And I ran at top speed. And within probably about 10 minutes, I found myself at the edge of this steep embankment of forest. And I hear this grunt behind me. And I thought it might have been an elk. It sounded like kind of like a grunt from an elk. And I looked behind me, and within no more than 3 feet, there was a male juvenile Sasquatch crouched, and he was swinging back and forth. And he was looking at me, and his face was very distorted, like if somebody was stressed out and started moving very fast with their facial features. That's kind of what it looked like to me. The interesting things I found was I was so close I could see his teeth. He was grinning at me, and they looked like what I call caveman teeth. They were all flat, which I found interesting, and they were all stained yellow, a very deep yellow. Also, the whites of his eyes were yellow and they were glowing. So I didn't know what that was. I had never known what a Sasquatch was. I never heard of anything like that. So my mind immediately went into a panic mode. What is this? And then all of a sudden I see to his left the child. I'm like, oh my God. I grabbed the kid instinctively and started running. And the Sasquatch started ripping foliage behind me, just tearing it apart, doing a rampage towards me. And I could literally feel him right there at my shoulder's length, literally about to grab me. And I called out, oh God, I'm too young to die. And it was almost like, I'm not trying to make this a religious experience, but it's almost like there was a boundary drawn where the Sasquatch could not cross it, and he stopped pursuing us. I don't know if it's a boundary of his understanding you cannot get that close to humans, or if it was more of like an intervention from something higher up. I'll never know. But I can tell you, you know when you're gonna die. I felt death. This was it. I was a kid, I was trying to save another kid, and I'm gonna die. But yet, at that exact moment, everything changed. So I got the kid back to his mom. The mom was crying, and she says, "What happened?" And he says, "I saw a bear. I saw a bear," because he was very young. He must have been like 4 years old. He was very, very young. I'm very happy, and I'm grateful that he got to live his life rather than possibly something else happening to him. But I can tell you, it seemed like he was playing, the Sasquatch was playing with the kid. It is almost like it was his toy. And I don't know what his intentions were, but I can assure you he was at the edge of the deep forest. If I hadn't found them when I did, that kid would have been missing. 411. I was in complete shock. I told my mother, because I was close to my mom, what had happened. And she said those things are stuff that you don't want to talk about because other people won't understand. My entire life, I've had so many different experiences that most people, unless you've been in the paranormal world or have had experiences yourself, are not only do they not believe, but they label me as crazy or insane, which I'm neither. I have a very high IQ, so there's no possibility of me breaking into the insanity of a genius. Sorry, I'm not that smart. But I believe that's part of the abduction. What they pick is people with very high IQs. I've noticed that trend with other abductees. I think it has to do with telepathy, because they have this tendency to want to use your mind to control the spaceship and other instruments on board. And I failed one of those tests, and they told me on one of my abductions, but I'm getting sidetracked here. I can sense when they're here, except for once. Up the road from here, there's another trail where there's actually was, the winds had knocked all the trees down, and this is where they have these birds here that nest up there, and you're not supposed to disturb them at all. And I went up there during the spring, and that was the scariest sighting I ever had. It was a bright red Sasquatch, about 9 feet tall, and he was schizo running back and forth looking for eggs from the birds because they nest on the ground. And the minute I saw him, I knew the vibration was completely bad. It was a bad event. I needed not to be there. The problem is I quantum entangled with him mentally, and that evening he attacked me in my dreams, where he destroyed me, and I was screaming, and I woke up screaming, and I knew that he had done a quantum entanglement, and it was the scariest thing I've ever run into. He was basically saying, "You will never come back here again." And I never did. I left that area alone. I've never seen a bright red Sasquatch. Most of them are brown. Your typical Sasquatch of the Pacific Northwest, they're typically 7 to 9.5, maybe 10 feet tall, and they're brown and they have no neck. It's your typical Sasquatch you see up here. He was different. He was bright red, almost glowing. And I've never seen it since, just that one time. It's a different variety of Sasquatch. But I can tell you the first time I ever stepped on this mountain, I think I saw a UFO hovering over this area. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's aliens with Sasquatch encounters around here, intertwined together. Sasquatches use power lines because, look at it, it's easier to travel. Much easier. It's areas that we've basically wiped out the timber. They don't always need the steep inclines. That's just protectionism. But I can tell you, when I see them, they're always at a advantage of elevation. They're always above me. They're always in the ridges. They're always, they're never below me. They're always above me. I have never seen one in a tree, though I always look up. People do see them in trees. But a Native American Indian once said you never take a picture of them because they think you're stealing their soul. And I refuse to take pictures of them because I don't want that potential conflict where they think I'm attacking them, because that wouldn't go well for me. So I'll take pictures of their footprints, but I won't take pictures of them per se. I've had them throw rocks at me. I've had them where I think I heard them giggle, but no, unfortunately, my Sasquatch experiences are pretty straightforward, and I wouldn't call them fear-based, but you can definitely tell that I'm in their domain, and they're making a point of it. Right around 14, I went into an operation in Mexico where the anesthesiologist had completely misdiagnosed what I needed, and so I almost went into a coma. And when I woke up, I saw a nurse slapping me from left to right, and my cheeks were just like literally flying because she was hitting me so hard to try to wake me out of this comatose state because they've overdosed on anesthesia. But when I was in that state, I felt I went into a black void. But my consciousness was everything and everywhere. And that's all that existed. Nothing but the black void and my consciousness existed. And at that moment, I felt nothing but love, peace, compassion, contentment. Like I needed nothing. Like in life, we're always feeling we're not enough, or we need to move forward, or we need this or that. I felt none of that. I felt completeness. But when I came back, that's when I had some strong psychic abilities to see things, to communicate, to find out. I could, at one point in my life, I literally could go into someone else's mind and just do telepathy. They could like literally tell me. We're doing a little of that today, by the way, Jill, just to let you know. No, seriously, we are, which is beautiful. To me, that's music. That's art. So go with it, absolutely. But yeah, so I could communicate with another person. Matter of fact, in high school, I had an incident where the young lady was thinking these thoughts, and I was answering her verbally. And before she said a word. And then she goes, which one of my friends told you this stuff? And then all of a sudden, she had nowhere to go but realized that I was reading her mind. And she screamed. She literally screamed and started running. She couldn't believe what had happened. Yeah, I mean, the reason the governments are so afraid of this ability is because you can literally go and spy on anything you want. Literally. That's why the Russians were into it. That's why the CIA were into it with Stargate and all that, because it gives you the ability to literally go into other minds, other places, see things, hear things that they don't necessarily want you to know. Oh, let me tell you about Mars. Okay, we've colonized Mars probably since the 80s. We have two bases, one in the south, one in the North Pole, basically in the poles. Mars has indigenous life. They're lizards. They're humanoid lizards. They've been there a long time. They're not your typical reptilian. They're very creative, very protective, but we're the invaders. So there's been wars that have been done. I have remote viewed Mars. Yeah, all those all those buildings and stuff are from ancient times. And actually, when Mars was at war with the planet that now is the asteroid belt, before it was destroyed, because they basically had nuclear war, holocausts on the two planets, and the other one was destroyed completely, they came to Earth. And I believe that they helped build human civilization, like they were involved with Atlantis and all that, because that's what I saw. And if you look back in time, there's an obsession with Egyptians and Mayans and Incans and all that, even in Native American Indians, of having a high forehead, putting planks, because that's what they look like. The Martians were tall humanoids, probably about 10 feet tall, very thin, kind of like the Greys, but they had a weird domed forehead that went back. And their eyes were kind of slanted, similar to the Greys, but not as big or as deep. They were a warrior race. They destroyed themselves with nuclear war. If you look at it, Mars is covered right now with a lot of fallout from nuclear radiation. And that the scientists have stated that. That's a known fact. And they don't know where it came from. On the dark side, the moon's not real, by the way. The moon was put there by another civilization to spy on us. It's basically hollow. And on the backside, there are bases, and they're mining that like H3? Yeah, helium-3. They're mining that because it's very valuable. And that's mostly what the bases are doing. But Ingold Swann was told specifically not to touch his mind with the aliens that are back there. They freaked out when he said that he made contact. That was one of the incidences that they had. And if you look at all old pictures of the moon and stuff on the backside, there's actually buildings that you can see, structures. So I've seen that. I've also, what interests me more is my past lives that have current locations. Like I've been to a Mayan city where I literally lived and died. And that's where I had my UFO experience. And that's where I recognized it. I even told the archaeologists, this is where the astrologers, the astronomers, the magicians used to live. These are their temples. And this was part of Tikal in Guatemala that was still completely covered. And it was just him and me. He looked around and he goes, "How do you know that?" I said, "Because I'm home," I said to him. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I got sideswiped with my other stuff. I got away from Bigfoot. My understanding, since we're all unified, we've all made pacts to have these experiences called life. And we need to keep in mind that it's all for the common good. It's for our spiritual growth. That there really is no true death, because we tend to reincarnate to have more and more experiences, and we make pacts and bonds with others, including other entities, to have these experiences. So I'd say enjoy the ride. Absolutely. And don't live in fear, because death is not truly death. We continue on afterwards to have even more experiences together. So I think there's a lot of hope in that. And I think over time, humanity does have the potential to grow spiritually, where we become much more united mentally and also psychically, and we become such a more harmonious whole, and we contribute to the welfare of the universe. So I honestly think in the end result, things will get better. So keep hope.